Corecon provides a feature called the workflow approval process. In this video, we're going to discuss how the workflow approval process can be applied to contract administration and procurement transactions. Workflow is available for firms that have 5 or more licenses. It provides a mechanism to establish approval rules based on a certain value for contract administration and procurement transactions. When enabled, Corecon alerts will be automatically sent via email to approvers so transactions can be reviewed in a timely manner. In addition, these alerts will appear on the Workflow tab in the Home view. To turn on and set up workflow approval processes for contract administration and procurement transactions, simply go to your Global Settings and click on the Workflow tab. We're going to be talking about contract administration and procurement first, and a subsequent video will cover time and expenses. We're going to click on Contract Administration and Procurement and make sure that the question, do you wish to use workflow for contracts and procurement modules, is selected to yes. Next, we're going to choose one of 3 types of workflows. The first method is the feature-based workflow. This is where specific users must be referenced as the approver in the workflow rule, or if the PM alias option is chosen, then the project manager referenced in the project details form will be the one responsible for reviewing the transactions. These types of workflow rules will apply to all projects. The second feature is feature-based workflow with project manager alias or administrative approvers. With this option, the actual user is not specified in the rule. System administrators and the project manager referenced in the project details form can review and approve transactions. These workflow rules will apply to all projects. The third, project and feature-based workflow. This is similar to the feature-based workflow option, but these rules will be project-specific rules. It's important to know that workflow rules can be established corporate-wide or be project-specific, but not both. Again, the first 2 methods, feature-based workflow and feature-based workflow with project manager alias or administrative approvers, is not project-specific. The third option, project feature-based workflow, is project-specific. The feature-based workflow and feature-based workflow with project manager alias or admin approvers is a corporate-wide option. The third, project feature-based workflow, is a project-specific feature. Starting from scratch, let's set up some workflow approval rules. Again, we'll need to make sure that the question, do you wish to use workflow for contracts and procurement modules, is marked yes. We're first going to use the corporate-wide feature, feature-based workflow, and click Save. This feature is set up for both the contract admin module and the procurement module the same way. For today's example, we're going to take the procurement module and we're going to click the Add button. We'll simply name the rule Procurement, and we'll also give the rule description the same. We'll select the procurement module from the pull down. We can select any or all of the features to apply this rule to, and then click Continue. You'll notice on the far right that the flowchart is drawn by Corecon as you add these rules. The first step in this wizard asks us how we want to define the expression. We're going to use the total feature, and we're only going to apply this rule to transactions that are $500 or more, and click Continue. Next, we're going to choose approvers. We could choose individual approvers, or we also have the option to choose the PM contact of project as an alias, which we'll do here. Let's add a second layer of approval. by clicking the Add Approver button. We have the option of saying and or, meaning we need both the PM contact and the individual listed here as approvers. We can also choose or. For this example, let's choose and. The other option pull down is whether it should be sequential or parallel. Sequential means that the PM contact of project needs to approve the transaction before it moves on to the next person. Parallel means that they can both be approving the transaction at the same time. Once both have approved, because we're using the and feature, it will move on to the next step. So let's say, for example, that we want the PM contact of project to approve the transaction first, and then we want it to go to a senior project manager. We could even add an additional layer, clicking approver, making sure that the transaction even goes through someone in administration. We also want to choose the number of days that the transaction needs to be approved after creation. Let's put in 2 days and click continue. You can see from the workflow diagram that the transaction starts. Despite who enters the transaction, it decides first of all if it's going to be a greater than $500. If it's not, it finishes the process. If it is greater than $500, it will move on to the next step. Because we chose the and option and the parallel option, these three approvers show side by side, meaning that each of these three have to approve the transaction before it'll move to the next step. They can be approving it at the same time. And then, if all have approved it, then the transaction will show as approved in the system. Let's go back one step, however, and change these views to or and parallel, and click continue. The workflow chart looks very similar with the exception of the or sign. So in this situation, the transaction greater than $500 has to go to any one of these three approvers before it goes on and is marked approved in the system. We can also go back one more time and change this to and sequential and click continue. Again, the flowchart drawing changes again, wherein any transaction greater than $500 has to go first to the PM listed on the project. Once that PM approves the transaction, it moves on to the senior project manager. Once the senior project manager approves the transaction, it moves on to an administrator. Once all three have approved, the transaction is marked approved in the system. Once the workflow rules are set up custom for your company, simply click Save and click OK. Rules can also be stacked. For example, if we wanted to create a second rule for bills, wherein the total expression is less than $500 with a different set of approvers, we could simply click the copy button. We'll rename this to less than 500 and click continue. We'll change the expression to less or equal to, click continue, and now we can remove a few of these approvers. If the transaction now is less than $500, within 2 days, the PM listed as the project manager will need to approve that transaction, and that would be the only approver. The workflow diagram has refreshed, and we can see how that rule will affect the process. We'll click Save. Once a rule is set up, we can also change those approvers. So for example, let's say that a subcontract needs to run through a different process. So let's just put a check mark next to subcontract change orders, click the global changes, and we'll change the approver, which was the senior project manager, to a different senior project manager, and click Apply Global Changes. Since no transactions have been initiated on these new rules, we can delete these and try a different type of workflow. So I'm just going to click delete on each one, and we'll change the select type of workflow to feature-based workflow with project manager, alias, or admin approvers. And click Save and add new rules. In this case, we'll use the contract admin module, and we'll call the rule name contract admin and the rule description contract admin as well. We'll select all four. We'll say a total of greater than $100 and click Continue. And this is already set up for us. The approver will be the project manager. That would be the project manager listed on the project landing page, and then the administrator. Notice the other options are not available, and we'll click Save. Now let's try the third type of workflow. So again, we'll delete these three. We'll change the type of workflow to project feature-based workflow. A word of caution on this method, that is that this rule needs to be set up for each project. This could be time-consuming and create delays if someone doesn't keep up with creating these rules. We'll click Save and Add. Again, these are project specific, so a rule will need to be created for each project and each feature. Put a total of $500 or more. We'll select the approver, and we could add an approver, or we could change the first approver to the PM contact of project, which is an alias. So whomever is listed on the project landing page will be the approver, and then add a senior approver. We also have the option and or sequential and parallel, just like before. We'll give them 3 days to approve and click Continue. Our workflow chart has been updated, and then we click Save. Additional information on the subject we covered today can be found in the help articles by going to Help, Settings, under the Workflow subheading, Contracts and Procurement. This help article has additional details and additional articles on each of the subjects we covered.